That creepy music means it's time again for the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. I am your host, Tom, or Robots Now, with +2 perception because I have glasses because I'm an old man. And I'm here with my co-host who has had glasses because I guess he's an old man too. Lotus of Doom. What's up, Lotus? How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. It's true. I've actually apparently on that scale, I've been an old man since I was about 3. So
awesome. Well, I'll have to come to you for tips when it has to do with old man stuff. Like what happens if my back starts hurting?
Yep. Just accept it and be sad.
What happens when my kids don't call me? What do I do? Yeah. So I'm kind of excited. Yeah. I'm kind of excited here because I get to one, I can see a little bit better. I don't have like crazy powerful prescriptions, but I'm over 40. Things are kind of getting a little fuzzy, and then I have to look back and forth between things, and my eyes just don't adjust as quickly. So this helps. Maybe it will help with my headaches and things too. But I'm especially excited for glasses because I now have a new prop to play with. So like, if I'm saying something really smart to somebody, I can like push them up in the middle like that, and then I can make my point. Or if you say something really smart, I can take them off, and I can kind of like tap the end of them to my mouth and be like, interesting. So like
the other thing you could always do if you just want to frustrate people, for anybody who's seen Westworld, you could wear them really far down your nose, and it doesn't make sense why they stay on your face.
Yeah, I could do that too.
And yeah, you could always do that. So
yeah, or take the glasses off when I get serious. Crystal, that's a good one. Like, I can't believe it. Or put them on when I get serious. Like, it's time to do this, like
somebody
like that
says something really dumb, you take them off and just rub the side of your temples holding your glasses.
Yes, yeah, right. Like, oh, you gave me a headache with your stupidity. Yes. Oh man, this is going to be so good. I'm so excited about this. But welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Glasses Cast. We are today diving into another of the Aedra, another of the Divines, and we've taken a few weeks off of this. I hope you guys enjoyed the episodes about the dragons and the dragon names, and it was super fun to have Pylon on last week. He's such a good guy.
Pylon's great. Yeah.
So we're going back. We're going back into the Divines. So today is all about Julianos. Yes. Julianos. And Lotus, I love springing things on my co-host. Lotus, when you think Julianos, what do you think about?
I think about the most over-asked for set in Elder Scrolls Online in terms of crafting, because if you're a magicka character and you need training gear, you are going to ask me to make you a set of Julianos.
You know what I think? I think old man, but that's because I have glasses now. So
also that, and all our wisdom points, as we'll get into.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. And of course, like usual, we're pulling from the UESP article. This is our main source of wiki stuff, which we start things off with. And of course, we dig a little bit more into this stuff before we do the episode. Yep. But a lot of the stuff that we quote is directly from the UESP because it does such a good job summing things up. So here we go. Julianos. I'm going to mispronounce it right at the beginning.
All right, nailed it out the gate. First word in, already problematic.
Nailed it. Julianos, Aedric, god of wisdom and logic, is one of the Cyrodiilic divines governing the realms of literature, law, history, and contradiction. Pause. This immediately brings forth what I think are some sort of connections to your favorite Daedra, Hermaeus Mora. Right? We've got basically he is the governing deity of information and the contradictions within that information.
Yep.
Which is exactly what Hermaeus Mora is all about, is this hidden knowledge and all the things that are going to drive your brain crazy.
Exactly. This is basically the light side version, or the Aedric version of the Daedric version that I love.
Right. And I love that, like, they're almost the same in that regard. Okay, so let's put that in your back pocket. Kind of hold on to it. Don't sit down too hard on it, and it'll make you lopsided. Here we go. He is usually associated with magic, and thus is often revered by wizards, Junal, the Nordic father of language and mathematics, fell out of favor in the Nordic pantheon, after which he became Julianos of the Divines. Monastic orders founded by Tiber Septim and dedicated to Julianos are the keepers of the Elder Scrolls. He is particularly venerated among many Imperials and Bretons. As a divine, he represents the virtue of learning, scholarship, and justice. His domains include sorcery, alchemy, and enchantment. He is said, and I like this part, he is said to incant the damned equation. His symbol is a triangle. Discuss. What do you think about this?
So we'll go with the most simple bit to start with, the fact that his symbol is a triangle. Well, here's his, for a visual prop, as we've been doing each show that I remember. So it's his, what would you call this? His shrine that you pray to in game is basically a pyramid with some designs on it, but very simplistic, pretty recognizable though, because it is literally just a straightforward, like some of these will get kind of weird and have been, but yeah, this one's just a straight up pyramid. And then you get into a lot of what Julianos is, and it's funny because at least from my take, I always view him as almost like the crafting god, because when you think about it, you've got alchemy, you've got enchanting, stuff like that. When you are, again, this is a little more in-game stuff. When you are craft grinding in games, usually tends to coincide a bit more when you're dealing with the Mages Guild. You're dealing with a lot of Julianos's realm, or however you would want to call it, his influence. That's where you're going. So he's very, if wizardry or that type of thing is your shtick, you are probably pretty affiliated with Julianos in one way or another, regardless of whether it's offensive magic, scholarly magic, or any of that stuff.
Yeah. I like to think of Julianos as the information and what you can do with the information. So any good craftsman is a good craftsman because they have studied their craft.
Right.
So
they spent the time learning.
They spent the time learning and then practicing with that craft in order to create a thing. Any good sorcerer in the Elder Scrolls is a good sorcerer because they've spent the time to learn, again, their craft. Sorcery is kind of a craft in Elder Scrolls. Some characters are more naturally magical, but their ability to control that magic and use it in constructive or deconstructive ways is built around the extent of their knowledge and practice with those things. And Julianos is very much the knowledge side of that equation. That's kind of how I see it.
And the way that these things are used in the series, it's almost like if you think of it as like a trade skill. Like these are your trade skills, and you practice them and you become your master of them, i.e. you level them up. And there's the, manual labor ones where it's like, oh, I can craft weapons or blacksmithing or whatever, or enchanting. It's kind of neat. It's more the magical side of the craft field, and that kind of gets attributed to Julianos as a whole. Right.
So we're gonna dig into Skyrim, and I mentioned this in the introductory section. Junal, the Nordic father of language and mathematics. We're gonna dig into Junal a little bit because he's kind of the only associated deity with Julianos. And if you can recall back to some of these other ones, oftentimes they have different names and then similar but yet different associations in different cultures. Julianos kind of stands alone among the Aedra in this sense. The elves, the Manish races all seem to worship a very similar version of him, if they do worship him, without it being too distinctly different. So we're going to get into that stuff in a little bit. And then at the end of the episode, we're going to dive into some of the locations that view him as their patron deity, which is interesting because there's not always this information as readily available, but for Julianos, it's definitely available, and it's right here. So we're going to dig into that stuff too. And then in the middle of the show, don't go anywhere because we're giving away 3 different $50 gift cards Robots Radio, and then 2 other people have decided to pitch in $50 gift cards for whatever platform you like to play games on, Steam, Xbox, PlayStation. So stay tuned for more information about how you can win that as well. So let's dig into this. In Skyrim, Junal, who's also known as Junal the Rune God, is the Nordic god of hermetic orders, knowledge and wisdom, represented by an owl. And Lotus, this is another one of those things that I thought was so interesting. Remember, we talked a few weeks ago about the moth? Remember this? And who was it? It was Dibella, right? Dibella was the moth?
Yes.
And
yes, I think that was correct.
Pretty sure it was Dibella. So Dibella was the moth symbolically, and Julianos is the owl, and owls generally are associated with wisdom, so that makes sense. You know what they should be associated with is like hunting things at night, because if an owl is nearby and you're like a rat or a bunny, like you don't stand a chance. Those things are going to destroy you. They're going to catch you and eat you.
Yeah.
Whole.
Yeah. Owls are actually pretty savage.
They're extremely savage. So in the live stream, if you want to join us live, you're welcome to twitch.tv/robotsradio. And you can also check out the video versions of this on the Robots Radio YouTube channel. But we have the image of Julianos here. This is Julianos with, as you see him in the temples, in the stained glass. And of course, the old man head, and he has a triangle kind of floating above a hand, and he's wearing these big robes. Pretty typical stuff. But then we have the owl symbol from Skyrim. That is one of the symbols that you can move around on the machines. And do you remember this stuff from Skyrim, where you would like do the puzzles where you'd have to like match the shapes, and there's like an owl, and there's like a fish, and there's like a
whale, and a snake,
and like those kinds of things? Well, the owl shows up as one of those, and that represents Julianos. And then also in some of the side panels in the crypts and things, there's and I'll describe this for our audio listeners too. There's Julianos, who stands as an elderly man, a kind of bald man with a beard, some wings, and a robe, and there are the worshippers to the right and the left with what looks like a queen and a king in a casket, and they're carrying them. And then above him is the symbol of an owl with night symbols, things like moons and stars, and then 2 owls flying away from each other, and a moon above Julianos's head, or in this case, Junal's head, because that was the name of their deity. So This goes on and says, he's represented by an owl and is one of the hearth gods. After falling out of favor with the rest of that pantheon, he became Julianos of the 9 divines. He is largely absent in modern Skyrim mythology. So Julianos may have been an evolution of this deity, which is interesting because, as we know, the Nords were Needs that came from a separate continent and didn't mix with the elves until they were all in Tamriel. We also know that they referenced Hermamora, the man of the woods, previously before getting to Tamriel as well. Both of these gods of wisdom and hearth and confusion and like all of these kinds of things all seem to have kind of a similar origin point.
Yep.
The owl that hunts in the woods, like there's something here. There's some connective tissue here, which I think is super interesting. It goes on and says, Wise Wing the owl is associated in northern Tamriel with Junal and is said to warn the unwary away from graveyards and witches' covens during the New Life Festival. Vivek mentioned Junal as one of the 8 known worlds. And as we also know, many of the Aedra are associated with their own worlds, which are potentially planets in the, out in oblivion somewhere. And they're kind of their own minor realms that are separate from the rest of Oblivion.
Right.
So what do you think about all this? There's some weird and wackiness going on in these connections.
There is. And actually, there's another connection I want to bring up that I was researching real quick because I saw this earlier and haven't been able to find information. Well, there's very little information on it because the reference that I'm about to make is from Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the stuff from the older games is kind of referenced and then fleshed out over time. This is not fleshed out over time. This is it's very limited, but it makes me just curious, based on the idea of the owl thing that you had brought up, is there is actually, and it's a group that not a lot of people know about, or at least not from my understanding. There is a group called the Knights of the Owl, actually. They were a faction in Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, and I'll just give the quick little snippet because it is very small, and I have not found them myself in Daggerfall, but once I dive into it, maybe I'll try to find it. But the Knights of the Owl are responsible for protecting and fighting for the royal family in Glenpoint. Only those most refined fighting skills and dedicated to the welfare of Glenpoint are considered for inclusion in the knightly order. The problem is that again, when we were discussing, you were talking about this, it made me think, like, if an owl is such a strong connection, is there a connection to the Knights of the Owl? Because I knew about this faction, and I'm curious if there is, and it hasn't been expanded upon yet, like, because we've never really heard of the Knights of the Owl going past Daggerfall. Most people, this might be the first time you're hearing of that. Right. And through the wiki, the UESP, and from what I could find in the Imperial Library, what I just gave you is pretty much all the information there is on the Knights of the Owl. So it makes me curious if there was an idea to have an order somewhat based on him, and maybe it never got fleshed out, or maybe it's just unrelated. They can have multiple things, but it was just an interesting little side tangent that I wanted to make reference to as hey, look at this Elder Scroll fact that I know. Bring up the Knights of the Owl, because most people probably won't know what that is.
A lot of this stuff does go back to Daggerfall, and when we go over some of the regions, these regions that are known for worshiping Julianos are mentioned in Daggerfall, and that's the only way we know about it. So there are these nuggets that may have been part of what was formulated about these, divines way back at the time of Daggerfall that have just kind of been these pieces kind of floating around in the background of the lore for a while now, and haven't really been pulled back around in with more info yet.
Right, and that's actually exactly why I wanted to make sure that I had all the information that I could get on it, because theoretically, the concrete creation in the lore of Julianos was around the time that the Knights of the Owl would exist. So it could be a tangent that's just never been explored more, or it could be a coincidence, like I said. But it's just a fascinating little tidbit that there is a group that seems like they should have like a connection to Julianos, but it's not really explored yet.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, there's a lot more to cover here.
Exactly.
The worship of Junal. We've got a little bit more on that, and then some other things I want to cover before we get to the middle of the show. So although worship of Junal has waned with most Nords, there are still those who have not forgotten him and aim for a higher purpose than the brandishing of swords and pursuing things such as scholarship, history, reading, and invention. This is, of course, from the perspective of the Fourth Era. Certain Nord warriors also respect Junal, as they must also have a strong mind and the knowledge to carry them through battle. So this connection to warriors may have something to do with what you're talking about. This older order from, hundreds of years before Skyrim in Daggerfall.
Yes. So it might have branches reaching out throughout the series, like in this situation they were referring to the Fourth Era Skyrim. Like who knows exactly, since it's such an unexplored thing for the most part.
Yeah. So there was also the comment about previously that I went through fairly quickly about he is said to, quote, incant the damned equation. And
yes, that's an interesting.
So this comes from the Pocket Guide to the Empire, first edition, Invocation. This is interesting. So this is an invocation, and it reads like this. It's not very long, and I will read you the parts that are easy to read, and then there's parts that are more difficult as you get down it, because they're backwards. So it says, Scion of Emperors, King of Earth and Sky, Lord of Shining Hosts, Protector of Oathman, Freeman and Yeoman, Guarantor of right and justice, broad blessing of thrones and powers, cynosure of celestial glory, the Most High Tiber Septim. Obviously, this is mostly about Tiber Septim, but then it goes on and says, the 8 invocations and 16 acceptable blasphemies. To Akatosh, whose perch from eternity allowed the day. Fairly clear, right? Time moving forward, movement of the day. To Kinnereth, who returns the masculine breath. To Dibella, who pays men in moans. To Arche, who braves the diminuendo, that, whatever that word means. I haven't looked that up yet.
Yeah, that one's all on you, buddy.
And then to Julianos, who incants the damned equation. To Mara, who fills the empty and drains the stones. To Zenithar, who the provider of our ease. And to Stendar, who suffers men to read. But the one I want to focus on is Julianos, who incants the damned equation. What do you think that means?
I mean, in terms of like the acceptable blasphemies or something, like, is there... I mean, you could...
Well, the acceptable blasphemies are the Daedra, and they read backwards. So they say things like... you have to read it backwards. I'll just read one of them. To Boethia, the fount of inspiration. And I'm reading this backwards, so it takes me a second to process it.
I guess what I meant by what I was referring to is like... So... There's 2 ways I suppose you can kind of read that. Is the equation damned, or is he... Like, is that what it is? Like, is the equation itself the thing that is damned?
I mean, if the equation is like capital E equation, meaning like the sum of the world, the sum of existence, right, the sum of reality, and there are cycles to reality. There is creation, there is the sustaining of reality, and then there's the destruction. And then the next Kalpa begins, then the damned equation is an equation that will always end in destruction.
Right, because no matter what, it's always destined to be damned.
Right.
However, so that's one way of looking at it, but that's actually not how I originally took it, which, again, that could be the way. Is the equation damned in the sense that it's like you can have something be damned in a way, not like... Okay, you know, this is almost like blasphemous, like that style. Like, is the equation being dealt with like a damned art or something like taboo that should, like, that's how I originally kind of took that. And then I was like, oh, it also could just be like you said. Well, I mean, cycles end. So theoretically, they're also damned in that way. So I'm just curious which is referred to, I guess, is kind of what I'm getting. Like,
it's a good question.
Kind of ambiguous.
It's a good question. There's a discussion on. There's been some discussion. There's not a whole lot out there about it. There's apocryphal entries by like people in the community and stuff trying to suss this out. There's there's some other posts about other things on Reddit and people trying to figure this stuff out. But really, there's nothing worth bringing up on this show right now as a like, here's a potential answer, because it seems like there's just not much else about this, which means that it's really interesting to me, because it's like,
yes, it delves deep into speculation at that point. What is your interpretation of this? Most likely this would be a written uncertainty thing where you would kind of delve deep into it and explain your point rather than just kind of like do more of an overview like we try to do.
It's not like there's another book somewhere in the literature that uses even that phrase, damned equation, that I can find.
Right.
Maybe there is. Maybe I just didn't find it, but I don't think there is.
I didn't see one either when I looked. So as far as I know, it is only kind of mentioned once.
Right. So that means that we don't have any hard evidence. We have speculatory evidence, like you're saying, of like people who really dig into this stuff and connections that they can make through, like if this is the character and this book says this and this book says this, it's similar, then it might mean this, but we don't have anything beyond that. So maybe we should have Aramithius dig into this one on written uncertainty, because he might be able to dig up more than I can just on, our version of this type of stuff.
Right. You can spend an hour delving directly into this one quote as opposed to having a quote be part of an episode.
But I would love for you guys to chime in with your thoughts on this on our Discord and let us know what you think the damned equation is. My guess has to do with the cycle of life and destruction in the end, and how we're all damned to end with the cycle, and then everything picks up again. I
mean, I could see that. I mean, that totally seems like it would work.
Yeah. Yeah. So to round this out, there's some more information about Julianos here. Julianos created the Shield of the Crusader for Pelennor Whitestrake, who we've talked about before, to help him defeat Umaril the Unfeathered. A chapel is dedicated to his worship in Skingrad. There is also a chantry of Julianos in the Imperial City. In the Iliac Bay, temples dedicated to him are known as schools of Julianos. As their name implies, these temples are considered educational institutions, which would make sense, right? They are believed to have spread the term magicka to describe the power associated with performing magic. Julianos is the patron deity of the regions of Lainil, Diania, Abiban Gora, Dwinin, Tulun, and Satakalam. And we're going to dig into those a little bit after the mid-break. Anything else you want to chime in with before we move on?
Very surface level something, but it's just something that I love about this series. And it's one of the first things that I remember, just like I want to talk about when you first introduce yourself to a series. I remember when I first played Morrowind over my friend's house, and I was like trying to understand what was going on in this game because I had a fatigue meter, and I'm like, that seems weird. If my fatigue is high, wouldn't that mean I'm tired? But that's not how that worked. And I remember being like magicka as opposed to like magic. I just super surface level thing. I love that phrase in the series. Like, I don't know what it is about it. I just think that's a cool way of making magic unique. So they call it magicka. It's super simple, but I never realized that theoretically it was attributed to Julianos. So thanks, Julianos. I really love that term. So apparently I owe that to you.
Yeah, I've always thought it was like an interesting way of relating it to stamina, magicka.
Magicka. Yeah, no,
as if it's a resource in that sense. And so it just does make it seem different than magic, which
or mana, which everything uses. It's similar, but just different enough that it's like, oh yeah, that's the Elder Scrolls term for it, where it's like a lot of this stuff is variations of something that's come before it or whatever. So it's I don't know, that's a term that I really like, and I never knew that it was in the series actually attributed to someone specifically.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. All right, well, let's move on with the middle of the show. We're going to talk about our giveaway, and we're going to thank our patrons, and then we'll be back with some more lore.
The skies are marked with numberless sparks, each a fire, and every one a sign.
So before we get to our giveaway, we've got to thank our patrons. So thank you to our big, did I say big? Patrons, our big guys, the tier 5, who is still tier 6, who is still tier 6 for the next few weeks. I know he's stepping down from this, so there'll be room if anyone else wants to be Akatosh. You're welcome to step in. It's a little bit crazy, but you're welcome to do that. Pie Man, thank you so much for your support this last month. Really, really do appreciate it. And then we have Noodle Al Dente, the best of the noodles, and Stephen R, who are our Daedric princes. I'd love to find out which Daedric princes they are, because that's pretty awesome too. But then we have a whole list of 50 other patrons. We hit the 50 mark. Thank you guys. Maybe we can hit 55 by the end of the month. That's what I'm gunning for. I'm hoping you guys can help us out. And if you go to patreon.com, you can find all sorts of things that you can get for helping to support the show. Ad-free episodes when we chat before or after the episode. So when we do extended episodes, you get that content as well. Sometimes we're just goofing off, and sometimes we're talking about some really interesting stuff that just doesn't make it into the main show. So you get all that stuff even at the bottom tier. You also get discounts on the store, ad-free episodes early, and if you sign up at tier 4 or higher, you get to join us at the end of the month, which happens in 1 week on the 27th. So next week, we're getting together with our patrons. We're going to be talking with you guys, and there are at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of you potentially who can join us next week. So come join us if you want to. Sign up at patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast, and we'll see you guys next week. Now let's talk about, thank you, all of our patrons. Let's talk about the giveaway. So this was an idea that occurred to me recently. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do a giveaway, and I want this giveaway to be a way to thank the community. Oftentimes people use giveaways to like grow their podcasts and things like that. And this is not about sharing the podcast. It's not about doing anything like that. This is about joining our Discord. Just show up in the Discord, and until the end of the month, you can jump into our Discord. You can heart any current post, any post after today or as of today, the 20th or on. So you can go back through all the other posts and just heart all of them. You can talk with the people there. You can heart each other's posts. As long as you're not just spamming stuff, just have real conversations. That's fine. Don't spam things. You'll get kicked out. But like legitimate conversations, heart all the posts that you can that have been posted from the 20th on, and welcome new people to the Discord. That's it. We're spreading love. We're spreading happiness. We're spreading the joy of being able to talk with other people about our favorite things. And that's what's going on. And every single time you heart a post or every single time you welcome somebody into the Discord, that's another entry into the giveaway. And there are potentially 3 $50 gift cards to whatever gaming platform you prefer, ready to be given away. So that's $150, guys. $150. All you have to do is show up, be part of the community, and heart some posts. It's really easy. So come join us on there, and we'll see you in the Discord. All right. Oh, and the easiest way to do that, I was going to shift back. The easiest way to do it is just search Robots Radio Discord. It will come up right away. It's really easy to find. Or go to robotsradio.net. There's a link right at the top. All right, let's go back to the rest of the show.
Yes, you're entirely brilliant. Conquering madness and all that. Blah, 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 blah.
Blessings of Julios upon you too, Soliar. Welcome everybody to chat. So we've got some places to talk about, and these are places that you may have been, Lotus, but I don't know that I've been to all of these places. These are places where Julianos is the patron deity. And if you haven't, or if you don't quite remember, it's totally fine. But we're just going to real quick go through each of these. So there's first, we have Lanelin, formerly known as Tava's Blessing, is a mall city. It's a city of malls. It is a small city, located on the north central coast of the Alakir Desert in the province of Hammerfell. It is a small and minor port city that is occupied by the crowns. The shipyards in town are well known throughout the region and have been used by people such as High King Faharajad of Sentinel to manufacture ships for the Royal Navy. Lanelin is the seat of power for the eponymous Barony of Lanelin, a political entity located in the southern Iliac Bay region in the forest region east of the Dragontail Mountains. The city was specifically located on the northeast section of the region on the coastline. Any familiarity with this?
Yes, I'm actually doing photos while I'm following along here. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's I remember this. There's a decent amount of questing to do here in Elder Scrolls Online.
Mm-hmm. A lot of these are either Elder Scrolls Online or Daggerfall, where you actually get to interact with them.
There's also the thing that I was most curious on. I thought I knew what this was, but yes, it's actually a really pretty port city. It's got a giant on the port. There's several boats like docking and stuff like that, which is really pretty. But so the Daggerfall reference definitely there. The one thing that I was curious on, and it is totally an arena as well, but it was not mission critical, so I did not see it in arena. But looking at the picture, it looks like one of the generic Alakir Desert areas.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, some of those. You're right.
Super detailed.
Yeah. Some of these are in arena. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was there, but I did not actually go to it in arena, so I don't have any fun input from that game, unfortunately.
Gotcha. All right. So next on the list, and they are lovers of Julianos, lovers of the knowledge. Then we have Dania, which I think is how you pronounce it. You know that AE combination that shows up in language from like Old English?
Yes.
This is one of the few things I remember from my old ancient English class I took in college. But that AE sound in Old English is actually aw. It looks like it should be AE, but it's pronounced aw in Old English. So if this is an Old English word, it would be pronounced Dania. But it's probably Dania in the way we say things now.
Interesting.
Is a forested region in western High Rock in the southern part of Glenumbra. It borders Cambrai Hills to the northeast. The region is home to the city of Daggerfall. It is also known for the culture of quests, where young people of the lower classes take on heroic tasks in order to feel more like nobility. There have even been cases where a task was so great the person contemplating it became a noble themselves. Because of this ability to move up in social classes, the people of Dania are fiercely independent. The region is also home to the Baldama Weird, as well as several witch covens. So more worshippers of Julianos. Yes.
Other than the weird themselves in the area, which, again, I'm browsing through, the actual details on these places as we do them. I don't specifically remember much. I think you might actually have to deal with the weird and maybe cleanse something in the region.
In ESO, you do. I believe you go through here, and that's part of the whole quest line with the witches, and the land is cursed, and
yeah. And you're cleansing it out. Okay, that's really all I could remember, but I wasn't even sure if I was mixing up the regions, and this is the place that I'm thinking of, because it's kind of nondescript from these pictures.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is that witches are magic users, right? They would then be worshippers of Julianos in that sense, at least, of knowledge and use of magic. But they're also very nature focused, and
right. So would they deal more with hedge magic and stuff like that? Potentially,
the earth bones and all that kind of stuff. And is there an intersection between those two that is kind of interesting, to me? Where do you gain your knowledge when you're dealing with hedge magic? Does it ultimately still come from Julianos?
That's exactly it. It's because you're not going to learn that stuff in an institution like a school or anything like that. It's kind of passed down, I would assume, from the elders to the younger generations, so that they can keep the traditions. Is it still the same, God Julianos that's providing this knowledge, or is it from another source?
Right. So
perhaps Hermaeus Mora, the Woodland Man.
The Woodland Man, maybe. Then we have Abibon Gora, is a region that rests on the western coast of Hammerfell in the Iliac Bay region. It shared borders with Cairo to the north, Kirau, and the Alikir Desert to the east, where it was a barony in the Third Era. Red Guards predominate the region, with Julianos as their favorite deity, which is interesting because, as I mentioned before, there isn't an analog to the Yakutan gods for Julianos. So they must have become worshippers of Julianos once they made their way to Tamriel. The capital city is the city of Abibon Gora, and the locality is protected by the Knights of the Wheel. This is interesting. After Red Guards moved into the area, the local Slode found that their methods of criminal justice provided a good source of material for experiments in necromancy. They were Slode in the region, yeah. Despite efforts from the Red Guards to rid themselves of the Slode, reports of them surviving as far north as Abibon Gora lasted into the Third Era, which is kind of cool that there were Slode still sticking around in this place until the Third Era.
This is apparently only in Daggerfall, so I actually have never seen this.
Okay, well,
interesting.
And notable that Red Guards worshiping Julianos is kind of a notable thing.
Yeah, that's less common. So,
yep. So I think that's pretty cool.
Interesting.
Then we have Dwinin, is a barony found in the province of High Rock. Again, High Rock, Hammerfell, lots of stuff in this region. In the region of the Iliac Bay, Dwinin played a large role in the battle against the Cameron usurper, whose legion came across Western Tamriel like an unbridled plague. It was the region's first baron, Othrock, who led the assault and overcame the warmonger. Toulon is a coastal city-state of High Rock, situated at the most western end of the province. It is bordered by Glenumbra Moors to the north, Glenpoint to the east, and Daggerfall to the southeast. The largest city is the city of Toulon. The dominant vampire bloodline is the Vreseth, and the regional deity is Julianos. During the Third Era, it was an independent barony, but after the warp in the west, it became a vassal of the Kingdom of Daggerfall. One known export of Toulon is carrots. I love that. That's a little side point right there at the
worthy
end.
Note.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dwinin's another one. These are actually some things that I'm going to need to keep in mind when I end up tackling the entirety of Daggerfall.
Go poke in and see what it's like.
Right. And I did that with a couple places that I had learned about in advance of Arena, and it kind of makes me, again, as Elder Scrolls Online is fleshing out so much of the world, Arena had a lot of the background for where things started, and then you get into the entirety of Daggerfall, which for the longest time held the crown of the biggest game. So that there's so many regions that even now have not been explored by anything else. So
we had a question in chat. Sea Chaser asked, "What is the warp in the west?"
What is it?
Yeah, and that is.
We should probably do an episode on the warp in the west.
Probably
afterwards.
should do. We probably should do it.
It
is one of the dragon breaks. It is the ending of Daggerfall, I believe, right?
Yep, it is. It basically helps canonize multiple endings because they wrote themselves into a bit of a corner, and that's a very clever MacGuffin on how to turn a inconsistency in a story into a feature that is actually really deep when you get into Dragon Breaks.
Yeah, when we talked about Akatosh, we talked about Dragon Breaks a little bit and how time gets messed up and how many things can happen simultaneously and all be canon, even though they're contradictory.
Right.
And so that was their way of...
all of the things happen and none of the things happen.
Right.
And people have a remembrance of some of the things, so it could seem like multiple things were done, but they might not have happened to you even in the same place. It gets really weird and gets involved, so it will devolve into a huge thing if we try getting too much into it on a side episode.
Yeah, so the way that the game Daggerfall ends is called the Warp in the West. It's because there were multiple ways to end the game. So that's where that comes from. We have one more location, Satikalam. How to pronounce that? I don't know.
Yeah,
Satikal is a word, right? Satikalam.
Hey, there you go. Perfect.
Is a city on the western coast of Hammerfell, on the eastern coast of the Iliac Bay, at the edge of the Alakir Desert. The nearby Motalian necropolis is said to be the largest crypt in the Alakir, and some of the most reviled people are entombed here or there. During the Alliance War of the Second Era, 582, so Elder Scrolls Online, the Empire of Cyrodiil sent the 7th Legion to capture the city as the first step towards conquering Hammerfell and High Rock. The Legion entered the city through a smuggling tunnel from Bankurai, taking key hostages and looting the temple of Satikalam. However, the forces of the Daggerfall Covenant were successful in swiftly liberating the city. During the period leading up to the Warp in the West, in the Third Era of 417, the city was the capital of the country of Satikalam, of the county, county of Satikalam. Following the warp, it came to be ruled by Sentinel. So this is in both games. Like you can actually visit in both.
And it's not so much a thing anymore, but the Necropolis specifically is a pretty cool area of the Alakir Desert. There's a world boss and a quest that takes you through it and everything like that. But back in the day, it's still somewhat usable, but there's better methods. Back in the day, because there are so many zombies that have been resurrected in the Necropolis, or Renatu, or whatever they're called, it was one really great method for leveling was to run around the Necropolis, aggravating as many zombies as you could into a giant pile, and then everybody pincers them in and just blows them all up and scoops up their XP. So nice. It used to be a great farming location within the Necropolis, was reburying the dead.
It blows them up and scoops up their guts.
Yep.
So those are all the locations we know of because they showed up primarily in the older games, but then were also mentioned in ESO. I'm sure there are other places throughout Tamriel where Julianos is a patron deity, but we don't get a whole lot of that info in the current games. There's Skingrad, which you can visit in Oblivion and see the temple to Julianos, which looks like all the other temples in Oblivion, just happens to be about Julianos the most, as opposed to any of the other divines. So looks pretty similar to all of those. And to wrap this all up, we do have a few little side notes here. The wine, Julianos Firebelly, can be made with sacred lotus seeds and lady smock leaves. Have you ever tried any Julianos Firebelly?
I haven't. That sounds most unpleasant, though.
I think we should petition for Bethesda to make this one of the drinks that we can get next time they have an event. Because that's what they do. For anybody who hasn't been to any of the Elder Scrolls events or whatever, like when we went to Vegas a year ago.
Oh, yeah, and they made that. They had the special concoctions.
They had like 2 drinks that they made, and they gave out tickets. And you could go and turn in your tickets for these special drinks. And they were named after actual in-world drinks. So there very well could be a Julianos Firebelly at the next event, which would be cool stuff. And then we also have those who visit the way shrines of Julianos in Cyrodiil receive blessings enhancing their intelligence and magicka, which would make sense. So there you go. Any other thoughts on any of this, Lotus?
Referencing just one thing that was brought up in chat. I don't know if I didn't catch it related to something you had said. Mm-hmm. Sentinel was the country with Solitude as the capital. And Sentinel is Sentinel is the city in the Alakir Desert.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was just to clarify in case that was
I said country instead of county. I think that was that was my mess up.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and then I tried to correct myself.
But no, and it's in the like it's brought up. It's in the Hammerfell region, so it's a pretty cool little region. You deal a lot with it in Elder Scrolls Online. If you play it, there's a decent amount of quests in there, and in fact, I believe the Siege of Sentinel is referenced. What do you call it with the event? Oh God. For not Halloween, for the New Life Festival, I believe the quest that takes place is in Sentinel, where you reenact lighting the fires. That's actually, they send you there for, what do you call it? For the Red Guard version. You cover each of the races when doing their seasonal events, and that's the place you go to for the Red Guards.
Yeah.
So pretty cool city.
So that's basically it for Julianos. I would love to find out more information about the connection to Hermaeus Mora and some of that stuff. There's, a lot more there, I think, that we haven't really gotten revealed. A lot of things that are just kind of like hiding underneath the surface, that really haven't been pointed out. And we just had like an influx of new people in chat. Welcome, guys. We're wrapping up the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. We do this live every week at this time, starting about an hour before now. And we're talking about Julianos and the Divines. But you can find the podcast all sorts of places. But welcome to the stream, everyone.
Yeah, welcome.
So, Lotus, what else do you have going on? How's Tales going? How's your other podcast?
Good. We've been kind of bi-weekly a bit more recently, just because real life has gotten in the way. And also, since we're more news and discussion, it's a little harder to where there's so much hype prepping for the upcoming chapter. There's only so much news you can discuss without kind of like having the new stuff drop. So we've kind of been on like a bi-weekly thing just so we don't inundate people with useless nonsense, since we're not super lore focused where there's just topic after topic after topic you can delve into. But yeah, I'm very hyped for the new chapter that's coming up. And I've been going back to streaming. What is it? Battlespire, that's the word I needed.
Yes,
and it's an experience, to say the least. But yeah, it's certainly an experience, I guess, would be the best way to put that. It's really it is great to see where the series has come from back in the day. But yeah, so other than that, I not too much. I managed to finally complete my last hard mode trial and get my last skin in Elder Scrolls Online. So I was very excited about that. It has been a long process to do that. So very hyped for the new stuff, and kind of been honestly listening and reading more lore stuff and being less aggressive on clearing stuff like I tend to do, and more just kind of delving into stuff like this.
Yeah. Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's good times, man. We're like 2 weeks away from the new content.
It's getting close.
It's coming up. I've been debating getting back into it. I mean, I've got the Mass Effect Legendary Edition to play because we do the Mass Effect Lorecast now. But I'm like, I'm gonna go play that, but I don't have time. But I do. But I'm gonna have to make time. And then I've been debating this whole thing about jumping back into the game and doing some more of the gameplay episodes and putting those up on the podcast. So a lot of just like, oh, how should I spend my time? Along with making these updates, I updated the Discord. There are now roles in the Discord. When you log in, you can choose what roles and what podcasts you like to follow. And now, instead of everybody just tagging everyone, you can just tag a role. So like, if you're into Elder Scrolls, then somebody just tag Elder Scrolls, and people who are into it will get tagged rather than everybody. So that stuff helps. It's been a lot of fun seeing people's reactions to that, and the giveaway is up, and everybody's been responding to that really, really well. So good. Yeah, we got like 2 weeks until I pick a winner for that, so that's going to be fun and exciting. And I love the idea of getting somebody a gift card that they could possibly use to pick up the new expansion if they couldn't afford it or something like that. So giving back to the community is always nice, because the community's here, and that's what enables us to do what we do. And it's just, you guys are awesome. Like I put up the thing today, and I was like, hey, I'm giving away a $50 gift card. And within, I don't know, half an hour of people all starting to chat about it on the Discord, 2 other people wrote me private messages and were like, I want to give away $50 to everybody too. And I was like, what? And they were just like, yeah, I want to give stuff away. Can I do that? And I'm like, yeah, I'll the first one sent me is another one of the shows. It's Almighty from Fumbling 4 and the Almighty Crit, who's on our Rocket Club, is part of our Rocket Club list of podcasts. And they do a D&D show and some other things. And he was like, yeah, I want to give $50 away. And I was like, okay, I'll draw 2 names. And then somebody else in our community was like, I'll give $50 away. I was like, okay, I'll draw 3 names. So damn. Yeah, it's cool stuff. And then also welcome to those of you who jumped into our live stream right now. They said they were from the Hispanic.
Keep up with chat.
Yeah, they're from the Hispanic Elder Scrolls community, which is super cool. That's awesome. So welcome to all of you. You guys are all welcome to hang out and join us. And you're all also welcome to the Discord, and you're also welcome to jump into the giveaway as well if you want. So exclamation giveaway. There's the info and the link to the Discord. But yeah, we're a fun community of people who love talking about lore, about this game and a bunch of other games, and that's what we're here for. We want to make friends, and if you love this stuff, then we love you. So let's all be pals. But that's what I got going on. That seems about it. And then I got my new glasses. That was it. That's what's been going on lately.
I think that's the main bullet point.
Yeah, that's the main bullet point. Is I am now +2 perception.
There you go.
Thank you very much. So yeah, so like I said at the beginning of the show, there will not be a D&D Lorecast tonight. That's normally what we would go into next, but my co-host Stuart isn't able to make it. He had to get called into work, so that'll be up on the regular stream. And if you're tuning into this for the first time and you want to listen to these, they're available everywhere. There's also recordings of previous episodes up on the Robots Radio Discord. So lots of places you can check that stuff out. Well, Lotus, I think that does it. I think that's it. Anything else to say?
I think that pretty much closes it up for tonight.
All right. We'll be back next week with another one of the Divines. Actually, no, we'll be back next week with our patron chat, talking with our patrons, and then we'll be back with more Divines. And by then, we'll probably be talking about the new expansion, the new ESO stuff coming out as well. I'd love to get your dropping as well. I'd love to get your hot takes on that stuff, man. Woo, going back to Oblivion, Gates, Daedra stuff. I'm excited.
And all the Dagon.
All the Dagon. All the Dagon. All right, guys. We'll talk to you next week. And until then, next time you get a chance to chill out, grab yourself a cup of Julianos Firebelly and let me know what you think. All right. We'll see you later. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. If you have something you'd like to contribute to the show, please reach out to us at elderscrollslorecast@gmail.com or on Twitter @ESO Lorecast. I really appreciate you listening, and I'd love to hear from you soon.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.